Anthony, maybe let's start off with the economy. So manufacturing, productivity, etc. What will this do to the economy?
It depends on how serious people take the claim that the goal is zero COVID. It sounds good, but the fact is, when you have so many people, the chances of getting down to zero COVID are infinitesimally small. The resources it would take are gargantuan, and that would have a huge negative impact on the economy. Now, if indeed people don't mean actually zero COVID, but limited amount of COVID, a reasonably small number, then the question is, what's the trade-off? Are we willing to devote our resources better spent reducing COVID deaths or reducing something else like smallpox deaths?
Now, you say infinitely small, the chances. What do you mean by that?
Well, if you have a population of over 1 billion people, the ability to get COVID down to zero is virtually, well, zero. We know that, for example, there are people who still die in developed countries of bubonic plague and leprosy, diseases that, practically speaking, have been eradicated. But nonetheless, when you have hundreds of millions or billions of people, the odds are you're going to find 1 or 2 cases out there.
Now, let's assume that Beijing is determined to get rid of every single virus case. Will they be able to do this within 5 years, do you think?
I don't think they'll be able to do it within a century. It's simply not possible given the number of people we're talking about.
I wonder if you could give us a general idea of how much it would cost relative to the GDP.
That's a really good question, and the data aren't in yet to be able to make a reasonable estimate here. I can give you an example from the United States. It seems that thus far, COVID eradication measures have cost us somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 to $10 trillion, when you include not just the money directly spent on COVID, but also the reduction in economic activity because we're upsetting the economy as we move resources. So $5 to $10 trillion to reduce the number of COVID deaths by how many? That's also unclear, but initial estimates are in the neighborhood of 500,000. So when all the dust settles, reducing deaths from COVID were far, far more expensive than reducing deaths from many other diseases that we don't bother to fight with the intensity that we fought COVID.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, China wants to be the most powerful country, right? Can they have zero COVID and achieve that goal at the same time?
I don't think so. I would suggest they're mutually exclusive because the key to Chinese economic power, in my estimation, is getting the allocation of resources right, directing the limited resources where they can do the most good. And certainly directing resources toward COVID eradication will do good, but I don't think they'll do the most good.
So eventually they'll have to choose between either or the other.
I believe so.
Anthony Davies, Professor of Economics at Duquesne University, thank you very much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you.